Welcome, Power fans. We are back to cover episode 3 of the final season of Power Ghosts. Before I start, just make sure to like and subscribe and turn your notifications on. I'll be covering every single Power episode this season, heading into part 1 of the final season finale. So let's get right into it. Episode 3, entitled Birthright. So a little bit of a placeholder episode. Wasn't completely crazy about this one, but there was a little bit of progress made. And I think the biggest thing to start off with would be Noma and the death of her right hand man, Obi. We can't say we didn't see this coming. This started last season when Obi started messing around with the green cards, dealing with Tariq. He got slashed in his face for lying to Noma last season, and she pretty much told him, "Don't let this happen again." He repeated the infraction, and we pretty much knew what was going to happen when she was walking up on him. I thought maybe it would be a gunshot, but we know Noma likes doing things personally, and she stabbed him in the neck. They cursed each other before he died, and that was it for Obi. Um, this season has been very weird for those two characters in particular. When we saw them last season, they were so calm and composed, knew what to do, nothing got them rattled. And now this season, it's almost like they've been out of their element completely. I think the fact that they've been living in the US has really affected them. I think they've gotten too comfortable and picked up all the bad habits from all the other criminals they've been around. I think also not being on their home soil in Europe and not having that power base has made them both very paranoid, and they basically turned against each other. And I think it's going to be to the detriment of Noma above anything. I think her days are now numbered without Obi. You know, the devil you know is better than the one that you don't. You know, despite all of his faults, Obi was loyal to her above anybody. Now she's surrounded with people who don't have any loyalty for her and want her position. You know, this whole little romance with Kane, that's not going to be to her benefit because we know Kane does not like to be under anyone. You know, we saw all the conflict that he had with both of his parents. So it's not going to be any easier for Noma. And once he finds an opening, he's going to gun for that top spot. And also, the other person that she's working with, Effie, who she has given control to handling the Russians to, that's building Effie's power base and trust with them because we know Effie was able to get the head leader's daughter into school over here. So he's going to be indebted to her more so than Noma. And then once Effie finds out about this romance that's going on, which she already has, she suspected it. You know, she's trying to not show that it affects her. And she's like, whatever. But we know Effie can get in her feelings very, very easily. And I think the longer this goes on, the more resentment is going to build with her. And eventually, it's probably going to be her that takes out Noma and not Kane. And that's going to bring them back together. And they're going to be able to take over Noma's empire. So unfortunately, Noma's days are numbered. I thought this was going to happen later on in the season. So I'm kind of surprised that it happened early on, but probably because the body count is going to keep going up and up. So they're just removing characters. I also thought it was out of character for Obi to fall so easily into Drew's trap. You know, as soon as Drew started questioning him when he got out of the precinct, he should have had it in his mind that I need to kill him as soon as possible. Not going to a meeting with Noma and hoping that somebody like Drew backs you. And if you go back and listen to our interview, I'll put it in the description that I did with Kyle Vicenteri, Obi's character, back in at the end of the season one finale, or not the season one finale, the season three finale afterward. He told me himself that if it were up to him, the first Tejada person that he would kill would be Drew because he feels Drew is kind of like that wild card and that sneaky person that you don't want to have out there in the world if you can take care of it. So it proved to be true. Our man Obi is out of here, and I think Noma is not long for this world either. I think she's going to be gone by the end of the part one finale. I don't think she makes it to part two. So Noma's basically put her demise in motion by taking out Obi. Uh, as far as one more thing about the Kane romance, I felt that this was going to happen after the last episode where she was going to slash him while Obi was holding him. and he mentioned one of her lines back to her, and all of a sudden she's all impressed, doesn't uh slash his face. That right there showed me that Noma's getting soft, and you can't be soft in this world. Complete 180 from the Noma that we had in the previous season. So I'm not really happy about that, but I see where they're going with things. We got to get the soap opera elements back into power. They're big on that. So what better soap opera than to have a new romance? Uh, the next big thing that happened this episode is with the Tajadas. So now, once again, they're trying to kill each other. So now, because of Tariq and Braden, Monet has found out who was trying to kill her, finds out that it's Diana. They have it out at dinner like they normally do, but this time Diana and Drew get away. Uh, Kane runs after them and he pulls his gun out like he's going to do something. I found that kind of dumb, because Kane should know more than anyone what it's like to feel not Noma's, Monet's wrath. He was at odds with both of his parents, and to the point where Monet pulled her gun on him a few times. So out of everybody, he should be sympathetic to how Diana and Drew were feeling, especially because they know that Monet killed their father. You know, them still even being cordial with her is crazy to me after her doing something like that. We've had all these flashbacks and we see how she molded them to be the messed up kids they are now. From the beginning, she basically had them living out Pusha T lyrics, teaching them how to move weight, how to lie, how to be snakes, backstabbers. All that comes from Monet, and all of that is being thrown back in her face. She has nobody to be upset about this with except herself, and that's what Auntie Janet, was telling them Golden Brooks' character, and I feel Golden Brooks' character is the one kind of wild card that I can't put my finger on. She's going to play some type of role in this whole dust up now, because as of now, we have Monet and Kane against Diana and Drew. And when they had the sit down at the bar, Janet was trying to tell Monet that you can still, go back to that girl I used to know that had so many dreams and everything. You can't control your kids. You need to let them grow and just leave the nest. They can't always be under your thumb. And Monet was hearing it, but she wasn't completely hearing it. And I feel like that might indicate that subconsciously Janet is sick of Monet's domineering ways over this entire family. She understands that these kids are grown now and they have to live their own lives. And Monet just refuses to take a step back. That's the thing now. You raise them to take over the empire, I would assume, and that would mean you falling back and letting them take the lead. And she just refuses to do that. And that's where all of this conflict is coming from. This is where the conflict was coming from when Lorenzo was still around, that they just basically use their kids as hired hands, and they're sick of it, and that's why they've been rebelling. So in Janet's case, I think there's maybe a little bit of a hint of jealousy. She's been trying on Monet's clothes and everything. She's always complimenting her about, oh, you have the world and things are so nice. So there may be a little bit of resentment there where she's the one that actually completely betrays Monet and maybe goes over to Drew and Diana's side. That's where I'm leaning towards, because that's just what I'm getting from this, but we'll have to see. But I think this season Monet has to go too. I'd be happy if all the Tejadas go, but I think we've had our fill with the older Tejadas. Lorenzo's already out the picture, except when he wants to show up as a ghost. I think it's time for Monet to be out of here in part one too. Just to clear away some of the fat. Some of these people, her and Drew, I said Drew is the first person I want gone, but if it's not going to be Drew, I think it has to be Monet. Uh, the next thing I want to go to is Agent Carter, Michael Ealy's character. I said the last two episodes I really wasn't liking where they were going with him. I felt he was too pedestrian and too much like all the other cops we've seen before. They kind of built him up to be this big adversary that had the skills and the know-how to take out Tariq. But so far, he's pretty much been like any other cop. The biggest thing he did this episode was keeping Obi on ice in the precinct, which was still kind of strange because he kept telling Obi, "You're free to go at any time." Obi had really no reason for sitting in there like that, and it indirectly led to his death, sitting there overnight, not answering his phone. But so far, Agent Carter, I think the biggest thing he did that showed that he's cool under fire is that when the lawyers were trying to come at him, like, oh, we'll put you on the news for violating Obi's rights, you had no reason to keep him here all this time. He wasn't flustered by that at all. So I think that does indicate that he knows the law really, really well, but we haven't seen him manipulate anything yet to really get at Tariq and any of the other criminals on the show. Because to me, if he's really going to be dangerous, like I said before, his means have to be a little bit treacherous as well. He's going to have to be able to bend the law to get them. And we haven't seen that yet. He's still playing it by the book. So we'll have to keep an eye on if Agent Carter really takes it to that next level and becomes that antagonist on the law side that we need to see. Because the law side has been in that pretty much since the beginning of Power. They really haven't had a big win, honestly. They haven't really won any court cases. They get killed at, you know, at whim and don't get any get back whatsoever. So we'll see if Agent Carter is going to be able to be the one that turns that around. One big development, though, is we saw Congressman Tate's or Councilman Tate's brother, who's a police officer. He is kind of bogarting his way, wanting to be on the case and join Agent Carter in taking down the Tejadas and Noma's empire and everything. But that to me probably means he's going to die because, the cops themselves, Agent Carter's supporting cast pretty much called him an idiot and really felt they didn't have any need for him. So we'll see what role he plays. Maybe this is a way to rope Tate back into the story. I'm one of the people that feel it was a big misstep to take away his show. I think that would have been a whole different dynamic, especially with an accomplished actor like Lorenz Tate, but maybe they couldn't afford him. Who knows? But maybe they're reconsidering that because I'd love to see him get his show. I think that's a good way to kind of touch on something that Power really hasn't done, which is really deep diving into the political side because we know politics is really nothing more ruthless than that. It's even more ruthless than the streets because the stakes are higher. And I think someone like Lorenz Tate would be wonderful to have a show like that kind of focused in that area. Because you can still have the street side and everything. I know it's not going to be high level like The Wire or shows like that, but it could still be an accomplished show and show a different side of Power that we haven't seen. But we shall see. Now Tariq's storyline this episode really didn't do much for me. They started out selling their cars to have, some finances to get back in the game. The biggest development I would say that happened with Tariq is he's starting to realize that his father's name and his father's legacy is not a detriment, is not something you should be running from. It should be something that you embrace. It clicked with him when Zion, the new person they're trying to get, as a connect, pretty much told him that, no, you have no history. The only reason you got this meeting is because I respect your father. If it wasn't for your father, I wouldn't even be talking to you. And Davis reiterated that to him, like, your dad's name can be an asset. So that's going to be, to me, a change in Tariq's philosophy. I think he's slowly starting to realize as he gets higher in the game that his dad was right about a lot of stuff. And I think that's leading us to the end game. I wasn't sure if Tariq was going to, die by the end of the series. But the way things are going now, I see Tariq surviving, and he's pretty much going to live out Ghost's dreams. He's going to be able to build on what Ghost did and then finally master the game as far as have his own version of Tasha, which will be Diana, because she's pregnant. There'll be tension there, obviously, because that's not his real true love or really who he should be with. But by circumstances, he's going to have to take care of his child, which he will do. And I think realizing that he has a child on the way is going to finally change his mindset where he starts thinking how Ghost was thinking and trying to protect his family and not wanting your family in the game. I think once he starts realizing that he has a child that's going to depend on him, he's going to know, I don't want my child having to do what I'm doing now. It's finally going to click with him. And that's going to be his understanding and his way to make peace with the decisions that his father made, even though James wasn't perfect, obviously, but he's going to be able to understand that more. But outside of that main storyline, also the school lounge with them doing these little concerts and everything, that can morph into eventually what might be Tariq's own version of truth. You know, he'll take it out and buy some property and maybe have his own club. All these little things are starting to come in place where he's starting to mirror Ghost a little bit more without realizing it. You know, he's been trying to run away from becoming his father, and he's doing exactly everything possible to become his father without even realizing it. By now, he's going to start realizing it once he finds out that Diane is pregnant. Now, how long that takes, I don't think it'll be next episode, but it has to happen before we get to the finale. And I really don't want them to wait until that point. But when he does find out that she's pregnant, that's what's going to keep Diana alive. And then he's going to start working towards completely, I think, dismantling the Tejada empire, which is going to start with, well, not empire, but crime family. And it's going to start with Monet because he's going to want to do everything possible to protect Diana. And the two things that have Diana in danger the most right now are Monet and Kane. And he's not going to let anything happen to the mother of his child. So that's where we're at with episode 3. Still kind of a placeholder episode to put things in place. Um, I would give it maybe like a C plus, B minus, but not a bad episode whatsoever. Let's see where things go. You know, we still got, I think we got 8 episodes this season, so things got to ramp up pretty soon. But overall, I like the pieces that they're putting in place, but I want to see more from Agent Carter. I want to see how much more sloppy Noma's going to get because obviously she's not seeing what's about to come. Um, Also, just as an aside, I gotta give Effie some props. That scene where she had the t-shirt and her panties on, I did not know she was working with that. So kudos to you, Effie. You know, I was not familiar with your game. But that's it. That's all I have for this week. Let me know what you guys think. Some of your predictions that you have for the end of season part 1, what you think is going to happen, who's going to survive, and who will not survive. And I will see you next week to cover episode 4. Make sure you turn your notifications on, and I will see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.